Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Batra Daf Yomi Daf Pedalad Amud Aleph. We're on 84a1. We're just going to start again from 83b, the Mishnah, so that we were back into the story again. If you remember, we were speaking about selling different parts of the animal. So we said that if you sold the rosh of a be'emah gasa, you didn't sell the raglaim. If you sold the raglaim, you didn't sell the rosh. If you sold the kaneh, you did not sell, which are the reot, the lungs, you didn't sell the kaveh, the liver. But if you sold the liver, you didn't sell the lungs. But if it's going to be be'emah daka, yes, if you did sell the head, you sold the raglaim. But if you sold the raglaim, you didn't sell the head. And then we said that if you sold the lungs, then you sold the liver. But if you sold the liver, you did not sell the lungs. Meaning if you bought the more expensive one, the better one, you did get the less one. Okay, then we brought down that there's going to be a bamidot ba'mochrin. If you're going to sell chitim yafot and they were found to be bad, so then the purchaser could retract. If he was selling bad ones and then they turn out to be good, so then the buyer, then he could retract. Okay, now he comes and he says, right, what's going to happen in such a case that if bad and they were found bad, or good and they were found good, so nobody could retract. And then the last case that we spoke about was that if you sold red ones and they were found to be white they were found to be red, right? Wood, which was basically from olive trees, and it was found to be sycamore trees were found to be olive trees, wine to be found chometz vinegar, and vinegar to be found wine, both of them could retract. This is where we're starting from the Gemara. So the Gemara says, what happens if you sold him something which is worth 5, he sold it to him for something which is going to become 6. And now what happens is that it became expensive. Right? And now it becomes 8. Okay, so therefore there was ona'ah. Remember that if you're going to sell something more than a 6, which I told you was how much percent? 17%. So therefore what's going to happen is that it's going to become it's 16.666%, obviously. So he comes and he says, so in such a case, right, if right now there was ona'ah, now he didn't ask for it back, meaning he didn't mention, by the way, you just did ona'ah to me. He didn't have the time even to do that, and it became more expensive. It became now on 8. So now he wants to retract, the mocher wants to retract from the mekach. Why? Because it's worth more than what he actually received. Now the lokeach, he doesn't want to retract, right? So mini tana, was there an ona'ah done, right? Because at the end of the day, at the time of the sale, there was an ona'ah. Yeah, it makes sense, no? One more time. I'm coming and I'm selling it to you. It's worth $5. I sold it to you for 6. I did ona'ah. I sold it for more, right? But all of a sudden, from the 5 value, it went up to 8. So now all of a sudden, the mocher wants to retract. Because the mocher is saying, 1 second, Ribono Shel Olam, I just sold it for 6. Now, the truth is, when he sold it for 6, he was also cheating. Because he charged ona'ah. He wasn't allowed to do such a thing. But now, can he do that? So the lokeach, he comes and he says, who is the one that had the ona'ah done to him? The lokeach. So therefore he says, "Halokeach achol lachzor bo velo mocher." Only the lokeach could retract, not the mocher. Because who was the one that acted improperly? The seller. So now the seller cannot come and retract now that the fact that it went even higher in price and now he basically lost out. Why? It's only the lokeach. Because he was the one that did the ona'ah. Mishum, usually it's right away. The second that he finds out, whether it's going to be that he's able to take it to a carpenter or somebody is right?
3 days after the transaction, it's fine.
As long as he has the time to find out and take it to a person that knows how to evaluate it, right? So he says the Elmaleh, because he comes and he says ilu lo onitan lo v'matzit hadratbi, right? So he says hashta donitan matzit hadrabach. So he comes and he says like this: the lokeach, the purchaser, could tell the seller, right? Why do you want to retract? Kilu, because of ona'ah. It's only because of ona'ah that you want to retract. But if you didn't do ona'ah, you wouldn't be able to retract. So for right now also, you cannot retract. So Rav Chasta comes and he actually brings a proof to this. The Tana Tuna, machalo chitin yafom and inseuraot. What happens if you sold them good ones and they were found to be bad? Halokeach achol azor. Remember, the purchaser could retract. Velo mocher. It's not the mocher. The mocher cannot retract because again, since the mocher was the one that did the bad, meaning he was the one that did he was the one that tricked the other guy. So he can retract. It's only the lokeach could retract. Says Rav Chasta, right? What about the other way around? Yeah, it was worth 6, and he sold it for 5. Uzlu ve'amdu el shalosh. Now it became even cheaper. It went now on 3. So, right, one more time, it was worth 5. So it was worth 6, and the guy came and he sold it for 5. So he undersold, and this is the other way around. So he got, and now it became even 3. So he says, meaning Tana, who was the ona'ah done to here? It was the mocher, the seller. So mocher yachol lachzor, so only the seller could retract. Velo lokach, not the purchaser. Ta'amar le, because he could tell him, ilu lo nitan lo mata. If there was no ona'ah, you couldn't retract it. So now that there's going to be ona'ah, you're going to retract. So therefore, right, again, the chachamim are giving him the koach to annul it, right? But again, it's only the person that was done the ona'ah to. The Tanatuna, we're going to bring a proof. Ra'ot v'nimtzau yafot. One of these sold bad ones and they were found to be good. So the mochel yachol lachzor, lo lokach. We said in the Mishnah, only the seller could retract, not the lokach. So again, this is perfect. So says the Gemara, 1 second. What's the chidush? That's our Mishnah. The Mishnah says it mifurash, meaning in our Mishnah, go back to the Mishnah. That's what we started with the Mishnah. The Mishnah came in, it said, right, that if he sold the good ones and they were found to be bad, so only the lokeach could be chozer, not the mocher. Says the lokeach. And if it's going to be bad and they were going to be found good, so only the mocher will chol, not anybody else. So therefore, in such a case, it's a Mishnah. So says the Gemara, imi matnitin, if it's going to be our Mishnah, Hava mina, I would have thought to say Dilma de Rav Chasta, Tarvayu Matsuad Rabbi. I would have thought to say in the case of Rav Chasta, they could both actually come and they could both retract. Umatznitin, and our Mishnah, Hainu Tama, the reasoning why is Mishum Dichtiv, Ra Yomar Hakoneh, which means Derech Hakoneh is always to be mityaches, right? That whatever you're buying, whatever you just bought, it's bad. Which means the Mishnah is talking about that it wasn't ona'ah, it's in the quality. Many times you come, you buy something, and something with ona'ah, you bought for the regular price. You're going to say, you know what? Terrible quality. This, terrible quality. Whatever, terrible quality. So therefore, he comes and he says, it has nothing to do with ona'ah. So from our Mishnah, you cannot bring a proof. Because our Mishnah was not talking about ona'ah. Our Mishnah was talking about, you just you bought chitim. And now you're going to come, you're going to say, you know what? It was terrible quality. How many times does it happen? You come, you say, it wasn't good quality. This wasn't good. This was, the potatoes were undercooked. The rice was overcooked. And this was this. And you understand? You can. So that's it. From our Mishnah, you cannot bring a proof. Okay? 2 dots. There's the 2 dots. We're in the 2 dots in the middle of Pei Daled Amud Aleph. Chamtit v'nimtzeh levana. Remember, you bought chita as if it was going to be red and then it became white. Meaning when you bought it, you thought you were buying red wheat and it was really white, or vice versa. So Amar of Papa says, Tani levana, from the fact that we learned that it's going to be levana, right? Levana means white. Shmamina, we learn from here, Hai shimsha sumaktehi. We learn from here that the shemesh is actually a duma. It's actually a dom. It's reddish, right? Why? Because there's 2 tzva'im to chitim, adom v'lavan. It's either going to be red or it's going to be white. Now, since the Mishnah said chamtit, minashon chama, right, from the sun, and it didn't say levana, so therefore, obviously, the sun is red. Okay, but that's called chamtit. The teida, and you should know the kasam katzafra ufanya, right? That he comes and he says that it's going to be me'ademet baboker u'ba'erev, meaning at the time when it's going to be the zrichat shemesh and the shkiat shemesh, meaning the time of sunrise and sunset, that's when it's reddish. Meaning when you look up in the sky, you see yellow. But no, really be'emet, it's reddish. When is it reddish? During the time of the zricha and the shekia. So why don't you see the entire day that it's going to be red? He says it's because of our eyesight. Meaning our eyesight, right? There's so many different aspects that you see it yellow, but really be'emet, it's red. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, so we're going to ask a question. Or we're talking about the negat sarat, and we said that the negat sarat is going to be amok, it's going to be deeper than the skin. Just like the sun, which is going to be deeper than the shade. Right? So he comes and he says as follows. So he says, we're talking about, right, the Mareh Chama. Now, here, it's saying that it's going to be amok from the tzel, which is beside it. So now he's saying that it's not going to be mamash amok. Right? We know that it's not going to be amok. But rather, because of the way that its appearance, it looks like it's deeper. Meaning like this. If a person has a tzarat, do you actually think that the skin, there's a depth in it? Do you think that it's bemet, it's going to be like a deeper? There's no indent in the skin. It's just because of the appearance, it looks like it's deeper. So he comes and he says, and we say vehatam over there, it's lavanu. It's lavan, but it says ba'im ba'ere levanahi. So therefore, it's mashma that the Mareh Chama should be lavan, not adom. So he comes and he says, kemare chama velo kemare chama. Says no. Like the appearance of the sun and not really the appearance of the sun. Kemare chama, like the appearance of the sun, da'amuka min hatzel, because it's going to be deeper than the tzel. Velo kemare chama, but there it's going to be lavan. Here obviously it's going to be a dome, meaning it's not. It's like it, just in the fact of the appearance that it looks deeper, of depths. But really, I meant not the color, because we weren't talking about the color here. We're talking about the depths, not the color. But according to the Havamin in the beginning, we just said that it is. We said that the color is red in the morning and in the nighttime, meaning when it's going to be shikia, right? Anyone ever see shikia? It's very red. It's not yellow anymore, right? Because that's what it is really, Be'emet. So he says, Safra techalfa pevarde de Gan Eden. The reason why in the morning, why is it that the shemesh is red? He says, you know why it's red? It's going through Peneh, right, Vradim, which is basically a Gan Eden, which is found on the east of the world. Meaning, where does the sun rise? In the east. In the east, that's where you're going to have, right, this place of Gan Eden. And therefore, since it's going by the place of Gan Eden, that's why it's going to look red. Uvepanyan in the nighttime, the Chalfa Pitacha de Geinam, right? It's on the west. And in the west is the entrance of the Geinam. So because of the fire of the Geinam, that's why it is giving you the appearance of red, right? So really, Be'emet, he's trying to say that really, Be'emet, the color is yellow. But just in the morning, in the nighttime, there's a special deen. And because of that special deen, that's why it's going to become red, whether it's going to be because of the fire of Geinam or whether it's going to be because it's coming by, right? 1 second. He said because it's going by the Vradim, the Makom of Vradim of Gan Eden. So says the Gemara, the Ika de Amri Ibchan. Some people say the opposite, which means it was the exact opposite. In the morning, it was red because it was going through the Petach Geinam. That means Geinam is going to be on the east side. And in the nighttime, it's going to be red because of the Petach of Gan Eden. The Gan Eden is on the west side. So basically, again, there's the two differences. That means according to everybody, it's because of Geinam or because of Gan Eden. The question is, where is Geinam and where is Gan Eden? Is Gan Eden on the east and Geinam on the west, or Gan Eden on the west and Geinam on the east? So therefore, it's two different opinions, and that's why it's going to be red. But really, Behemet, right, the entire time is going to be yellow. Okay? There's the two dots on the bottom of Peidaled Amud Aleph. Says, Yain v'nimtza chometz. What happens right now if you're going to sell wine and it was found to be chometz, or the other way around? Shneim yocholin lachzor behem, both of them could come and they could retract. Okay, so both of them. So says the Gemara, so why don't we just say that our Mishnah is going according to Rabbi and not according to Rabbanan? Why? The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, Peidaled Amud Bet 84b. Yain v'chometz min echadu. Really, Be'emet, wine and vinegar is the same species. And Rabbi says, right, we're talking about over here to do with truma, right? That means if a person is going to come and they're going to be torem, wine on vinegar, or vinegar on wine, it's going to be a good truma, right? Which means that you're going to come and you're going to take off, separate trumot. Usually you have to take off on the same species. I cannot come and take from one species and come and take it from something else, or the same vice versa. So he comes and he says, so yain and chometz is considered the same species. Rabbi comes and he says it's considered shteminim. So obviously he comes in, and therefore if you're going to take off the tuma from one another, so it doesn't work. So obviously, if you're going to tell me that if I came and I sold you wine and it was actually vinegar, or vinegar and then it was wine, so therefore you're allowed to retract. So obviously our Mishnah is not in accordance to, right, to Rabbanan, because it's saying it's two different species, and that's why according to Rabbi you're allowed to retract. So our Mishnah says you can retract. So our Mishnah is going according to Rabbi and not according to Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, no. Even if you want to say it's going according to the rabbis, the Rabbi, when is it the rabbis argue on Rabbi? To do with Masechet and Truma. Only to do with Masechet and Truma. Like Rabbi Elah. Tamar Bilazar says Rabbi Elah, how do we know if you're going to be torem something bad on good? How do we know truma to truma? How do we know that it's still good truma? What does that mean? Even if you're going to be tafrish, you're going to separate the truma, which is the chelev sheba perot. Remember, the chelev is the best of the fruits. Okay, so he says, so it's not going to be a chet. Mimela nishma, that if you're going to come, you're going to do the bad ones on the good ones, right? There is a chet. So in eno kadosh, but if it's not going to be kadosh, so why do you have Nesiat Chet? Meaning, if it doesn't work, so why do you have to carry the sin? Why are you carrying the burden of the sin if it doesn't work? But rather, we learn from here, it is a good truma. So if a person, imagine right now, you've got a whole bunch of oranges, and I'm going to come and I'm going to take the worst oranges, and I'm going to separate. It's still a good truma. It says it was a chet, but in order for it to be a chet, it had to be a good truma. Because if it's not a good truma, that's it. There's no chet, there's no nothing, you didn't do anything. So he says, but to do with buying and selling, to do with mekach umemkar, That according to everybody, some people they need vinegar, and some people they need wine, right? So that means it comes out that each one according to what they need. Some people they want the wine and they don't want the vinegar, and some people don't want the vinegar and they don't want the wine. So therefore, in such a fashion, obviously, according to everybody, this is not only according to Rabbi, it's according to everybody. According to everybody, it's not going to consider a mekach ta'ud. Pedalo Mishnah says the Mishnah mocher perot lechavero. If you're going to sell fruits to your friend, mashach, the second that you did meshicha, remember meshicha means that you draw it forth towards you. Velo madad, even though you did not come and measure it, kana, you acquired the fruits with kinyan meshicha, and the medida is not me'akev. What does it mean? It's not me'akev. The medida is just to make sure that you're paying the right price, but you already acquired it, right? Now, obviously, there's going to be nafkaminas that if something happens to it or whatever it is, now it's yours. That's it. You did the kinyan. Madad velo mashach. What happens if you measured it, but you didn't do meshicha? So lo kana, you didn't do any kinyan. Imagine I come right now and I put something on the scale. I find out how much it is, but I didn't actually do anything with it. So therefore, the fact that I put on the scale, right? You didn't do a kinyan, so you didn't do a kinyan. It's not yours. If the lokeach is going to be a pikeach, which means that he wants it to actually come and to finish the sale without meshicha, socheret mekuman, rent out its place. Remember the kinyan agav? This happens all the time. We do it for Pesach as well, right? What do you do? Kinyan agav. What does it mean? Where's the chametz? Over here. I'm renting out the space, meaning the space where you have the chametz is rented out to the goy. It's called kinyan agam, and therefore, even if the goy does not come and he's pulling your chametz, he doesn't need to, because since he's renting your place, and right now the chametz is in your place, now he just rented out, so now it's his place. So therefore, it's going to be a good sale. And by the way, this is with everything, okay? And that's why it's rented. Now, why is it so important? Because when you're doing mechirat chametz, you have to designate the place to the goy, and therefore, if somebody sold a room, so now technically speaking, that room belongs to the goy, right? What? 1 second, you understood? Now again, why? Because of what we just mentioned. So that's why some people that come and say, Rabbi, I'm selling my house. I come and ask them, what happens right now if you have to go into your house? You forgot passports, you forgot something. What happens? So what's wrong, Rabbi? I'm going to go to my house. I said, you just sold it. Nah, you know what I mean? I just sold it. No, you just sold the house to the goy, which means that the goy is renting, right, that house for the entire time. So you're right. We come and we ask from the goy, by the way, just in case a Jew forgot, can they still come inside and can they take whatever they need or whatever it is if they forgot something? But yeah, person has to be careful. Okay, again, according to what we just mentioned. Okay, 1 minute. So alokeach pishtan mechavero. So now we're talking about now that you're going to acquire pishtan from your friend. So you're not going to acquire it. So again, the same thing, right? We're talking about now something small, right? Which is basically the normal, which is actually to pick it up. And therefore you don't do meshicha, you do hagba'ah. Hagba'ah is picking it up and not meshicha, which is pulling it. You're not going to acquire it until you're going to be metaltelota, which means you're going to be picking it up and moving it from one place to another place. Because then you're going to be koneh with hagba'ah. What happens if it's going to be connected to the ground? Vitalash, and you detached it from the ground koshu. Kana, you're going to acquire it. Okay, so that is the Mishnah. That's the Gemara. Amar Ravasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Ravasi, name Rabbi Yochanan. Madad v'niach al gabe simta. What happens right now if the mocher measures it for the lokeach, right, and he places it on a simta? So remember, simta is a place close to the Reshut Rabim where people usually put their clothing or their things. So kana, he's going to acquire, which means even though there was no meshicha, the fact that he placed it in the reshut of the lokeach, because now it's not in the reshut anymore of the mucher, so that's already going to be enough. So Elmaleh Rabbi Zera Ravasi says Rabbi Zera Ravasi, Shema lo shama Rabbi ela b'model tu kupato. 1 second, maybe Rabbi only said if you're going to measure it and you're going to put it in his basket, but not just in the reshut Rabim. Imagine, you know, the wall right here we have right here, right outside of right here, right by the parking lot. Right, there's a wall. Right? Imagine I'm going to come. I'm going to put it on top of the wall. So that's like a simta. You could put your personal things there, but I'm going to say that that's yours. I would have said, listen, if I got a basket there, or I got my car there, and you come and you put it in my trunk, there it makes sense, but not just stamp. So he comes and he says, Elmaleh, he says, yeah, that's also simta. Yes, also it's makom samuch l'reshut rabim. right? And you're allowed to put your things there. Yeah, but that's what. No, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's what it is. It's in the simta. It's in the simta. So he says, so Elmaleh comes and he says, Dami Haimer Rabbanan kedlo gam gemini en sheshmate. Do you know this guy? It's like he never learned. Yeah. You know, nowadays, if you tell that to a person, he would be very, very offended. But in the olden days, they know how to take things. So therefore, he went and he said, this guy, he never learned before. Yeah, that's what they said. Why? Madad letoch kupato mem rabbi. He says, do you even have to say it? Obviously, if I right now come, right, and I have my kupa, which basically is like my basket, and you put it in my, obviously I'm acquiring it. Well, what's the safek, right? Why? Because it's midin chatzer, right? It's my chatzer. So he says, but did he accept it or not? Meaning, he went and he told them, I don't know what's your chidush. You're going to tell me that if you come and you put in your bag, you're going to acquire it? Obviously. Now, again, remember, we're talking about a simta. We're not talking about in my private reshut, which means if I go to Publix and I put something in the cart, it's not mine because it's a public place. So therefore, it's a public, or it belongs to Publix, whatever it is. And therefore, I'm not going to acquire it. But if I'm in the middle of the street, right, and now I have a bag, right, and we're both allowed to be there, and now you come and I buy something from you and I put it in my bag, now I do acquire it because I'm not in the public, I'm not in a private owner's place that I don't make any kinyan until I actually leave. So did he accept it or not? So Tashema, let's try to bring a proof. Ta'am Rabbi Yana says the name of Rabbi. Chaser shutafin konim mizeh. So chaser shutafin, each one could acquire from each other. My lover, we're not talking about agabe karka. We're talking about the karka of the chaser, no? Again, remember, they're talking about shutafim. They're partners in the field. So says the Gemara, no, the to kupato, in the kupa, right? Which means that since it's a chaser meshutefet, they're shared. It's a shared property. So therefore, he comes and he says, maybe it was not koneh. And that's actually logical. Says Rabbi Yaakov in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, if you measure it and you place it in the simta, lo kana, you didn't acquire it. So says the Gemara, kasha that one second, but that's a tzira. We just said that if you put it on the simta, you are acquiring it. So he says, but rather it's true. It all depends. If you did it al gabe karka, so therefore what? It's not going to acquire it. You have to put it inside the kupa, which means that this. Even if I'm going to come and we're going to be in the simta, remember, simta is sider shut rabim. So it could be basically whether we're talking about the sidewalk, even though maybe the sidewalk is considered shut rabim, but maybe like what I said, whether it's going to be the wall, right? Because on the other side already, it's already private property, right? The parking lot over here, that's already a private property. The question is, okay, let's say the wall right there between the shut rabim and the shut yachid. So what happens is if you're just going to measure it, so if you're just going to put it on the wall or on the simta, it's not good enough according to the shita. You need to put it inside the kupa. So according to this, that's why he's coming and he's saying, Shema mina, we learn from here that obviously he did not accept this answer. And he held that it has to be dafka betoch kupa, dafka betoch the sal, his basket, in order to acquire. Tashema, we're going to try to bring another proof now. Madad velo mashach. If you did medidah, but you didn't do meshicha. Remember, you measured it, but you didn't do meshicha, which is you pushed it towards you. Lo kana, you didn't acquire it. Malav is simta, we're not talking about the simta. So says, no, we're talking about the Reshut Rabim. Meaning again, we're trying to bring a proof that the simta you do acquire it. We answer, we're talking about the Reshut Rabim, not the simta. So if it's the Reshut Rabim, obviously you're not going to acquire it. So says the Gemara, if so, let's see the former part of the Mishnah. The former part of the Mishnah says, Mashach velo madad. If you did meshicha but you didn't do medidah, you acquired it. Meshicha b'Reshut Rabim. Since when can you make a kinyan meshicha in the Reshut Rabim? You have to make the kinyan meshicha in your own property, or in a simta, or somewhere where you're allowed to be, not in the Reshut Rabim. The Abai v'Rava both said, Mesira, right, koneh. When you're giving something over to somebody else, that's going to be koneh b'Reshut Rabim. Uvechatzer she'eno shel shnehem, or mechatzer shel shnehen, right, meshicha koneh b'simta. That's the Mesira, meaning the Mesira that you're giving over, that does help in the Reshut Rabim, and also chatzer shel shnehem. Meshicha is only going to acquire in a simta, or nechatzer shisha shneim, v'agba'a bechol makom. Meaning like this: there's three different types of kinyanim that we're mentioning here: mesira, meshicha, and hagba'a. Hagba'a is picking up. Meshicha is drawing it towards you. Mesira is that the person's coming and he's giving it over to you. So he comes and he says like this: the most powerful type of kinyan, obviously, is hagba'a, because hagba'a you're koneh bechol makom. Doesn't matter where you are. You come and you do hagba'a, you pick something up, it's yours. Doesn't matter where you are, right? Doesn't matter. Now he comes and he says, when we're talking about a Meshicha is only going to be in a Simta or in a Chatzer that belongs to both of them. And what's to do with the Mesira, that's also in Reshut Rabim or Chatzer Shel. So Meshicha does not help in Reshut Rabim. So if Meshicha does not help in Reshut Rabim, because it already says a Meshicha only helps in a Simta or a Chatzer Shel, so how could you tell me now Mashach velo Madad Kana, and we're talking about Reshut Rabim? It's impossible. Meshicha doesn't help in Reshut Rabim. So says the Gemara, my Mashach nami diktan. What does it mean now that Mashach that we learned? Reshut Rabim and Simta. No, you did Meshicha from the Reshut Rabim to the Simta. So now it does help. Because we just said that Meshicha kona Simta. So since you moved it from the Reshut Rabim to the Simta, it does help the Meshicha. So now let's go back to the Seifa. So let's see the Seifa, the latter part of the Mishnah. If the guy was smart, so you just rent out the place. Now, if it's in the Reshut Rabim, who do you rent the Reshut Rabim from? Yeah, you can't rent the Reshut Rabim. So what are you talking about then? So obviously we're not talking about the Reshut Rabim. So says the Gemara, no. But this is what he say. If it's going to be in the possession of the Baalim, then if he's a Pikeach, socheret mekuman. Meaning we have to add that here we're not talking about anymore the Reshut Rabim. We're talking about something completely different, and that's what we were just saying, right? Until now. And then Rav and Shmuel Danu Tabayu, obviously, kelav shaladam konelo b'chol makom chutz min Reshut Rabim, right? The kelim of a person is going to be acquired to him through kinyan chatzer in any single place except for the Reshut Rabim. And Rav Yochanan and Shimon ben Lakish are going to say afilu b'Reshut Rabim, even Reshut Rabim. It comes out it's going to be a machloket, but there's not going to be a machloket, and we'll continue with Zat Hashem tomorrow.